Hi Legionnaires, Steve Cox here with you once again from High Tech Legion. I like to think that I have an eye for beautiful things. From the cases that I've bought and the computer systems that I've built to my car, my yard, my house, everything, I really like beauty and simplicity. That being said, I've had my eye on a company for a number of years now. I've seen some of their cases at shows that I've been to. I've seen quite a few of their cases online, and I've never purchased one myself. I'm kind of a hands-on guy. I usually go to a store, put my hands on something and buy it. I'm not a big online orderer, kind of old-fashioned that way. Either way though, I now have the pleasure of seeing the PC-10N from Lian Li. This is the company I'm talking about. I'm making it look heavy, but this case is actually very, very light. It is an aluminum chassis, and I can't wait to get in here and get a build in it and get some good ideas of all the things that it's capable of. Just looking at the box and reading some of the features of the case on the side of the box, it looks like it's going to be a really great build. Okay, so here we have the Lian Li PC-10N aluminum PC case. It is made in Taiwan, and pretty basic box design. Small picture of the case itself on the side showing some ventilation. They're going to be on the left hand side of the case, of course large ventilation on the front, and it looks like it's got a cutout of some kind, probably for a radiator or fan ventilation on the top. On the side of the case, you can see it gives a rundown of all of the, first it's in numerous different languages, but here in English it gives the rundown of the insides. It's got 5 1/4 by 3 bays and 6 3.5 inch bays and 3 2.5 inch bays. It supports ATX and micro ATX motherboards. It has 8 PCI slots. It has 3 120mm fans. The I/O ports include USB 3.0, 2 of those, and then a 20-pin plug for that, and HD audio. And then the DIMM is 210 by, dimensions. So it's 210 by 473 by 490 millimeters. That's width, height, and depth. That's the actual case itself. The box dimensions are, looks like 10.5 by 22 3/4 by 20 3/4. So that adds up pretty nicely. Again, the case itself, the box itself, pretty basic. It's got the same information on both sides and the same images on the front and back. So let's get it open and take a look at the packaging here real fast. Okay. Pretty basic. Styrofoam protection on the sides, and then of course plastic to protect it from dirt, dust, and debris and moisture. Again, this case is incredibly light. Being in an aluminum case, I've handled quite a few steel cases lately, and they're all very, very heavy, where this thing is quite easy to move around. First thing I notice, let me get that noisiness out of the way. First thing I notice upon opening the case is that it is silver. You can see the aluminum is the original silver color, but it's a very clean looking silver. It does have some grommets here in the back for water cooling if you were to place a radiator in here, and you can see that it is slotted there so that you don't have to well, in theory I guess it looks like you could run an AIO water cooler through there. I will double check that during the build and verify that that is the case. I can't see why you couldn't. You would take the grill off the back, take the fan out, mount your radiator there, and you could put the radiator and fan here on the outside, I believe. Sure enough, we do have a space here on the side for ventilation, and that leads to, on the inside of the case, simply removing these thumb screws, and those came out very easily. They fit very well, and so does that side actually. It didn't catch in a bind or anything. Looks like we have a place here for two 120 millimeter fans or a 240 millimeter radiator, and I suppose in theory you could put two 120 millimeter radiators there, and it is on a hinge. You can see the hinge here. You take the thumb screws out, open the hinge up, and you can mount that, and it pops right out easily also. So if you don't want to use it, you don't have to, and it doesn't need to be in the way. First thing you see when you get it open, maybe not the first thing, but a large difference between this case and other cases that you'll notice is the motherboard panel. You can see that this is a rail system, and with some of these wires out of the way, you can see that the motherboard will attach a little bit lower down and onto, not lower down, I apologize, but it'll mount onto these rail systems, leaving you a lot of room for routing cables around the back without needing cutouts. So instead you just have all this open space. Obviously we can see the box here. I guess that's really nothing. It's just some debris that was in there. Let's cut that box out. So inside the box, of course, we're going to have all of your connectors, screws of every kind. Lots of little rubber fittings, which will be for the hard drives and everything, and some tie downs, and it does come with a error message speaker, the little beeping speaker that plugs into motherboards, and like I say, two zip strip tie downs, and then just a handful of these rubber washers, which will mount onto the side of your hard drive and then go in here. And that's another feature I will cover here shortly. The toolless hard drive mount seems very simple. You use a couple of these large screws, run it through the rubber washer, screw it into the side of the hard drive, and then just slide the hard drive in and lock it down using this little arm here. So the first thing I want to do to get started on the installation of the motherboard and all the hardware in the Lian Li PC-10N case, I'm going to take off both sides just so that I can see straight through it. But the other part of that is, pardon me, the other part of that is just clearing out all of your wiring, of course, getting everything pushed aside and tucked out of the way so that you have easy access to the motherboard area. I would say motherboard tray, but of course in this case it's not really a tray. It does use this rail system that I talked about. And I actually really think it looks good. The brushed aluminum is really much cleaner than I would have expected. We're all so used to the last couple of years used to the black on black painted insides and everything. This is actually really clean looking. and I kind of like the shine, and I think it'll look good, especially if you had a little bit of LED lighting or any kind of lighting in there. It'll really give that glow and that full effect of the light. That being said, first thing you want to do is make sure that you have all of your lift-offs in the right locations. I believe these are placed already for a full-size ATX board, and I don't have a full-size ATX board. You can see I'm going to be able to take out a couple on the back edge here, and I'll need to move these lower ones up into position. Of course, the next thing you want to do once you have your lift-offs in the right place, put your I/O shield in the back. Make sure you have it pointed the right direction. You can simply take a look at the back of the motherboard, line it up, and know that you have it correct, oriented correctly. Getting it in there is a snap. This one actually fits much tighter than others I've dealt with, but it does just snap right in. Once you have that, gently put the motherboard in place. I already have my CPU and the little air cooler and the RAM installed so that I don't have to do that inside the case. I think that makes things quite a bit easier for me, but some of that is really just up to your own preference. Then you get it in position. Make sure the rear I/O port lines up, and make sure that you line up your holes with the lift-offs, and then you're ready to screw down the motherboard. I'm lazy, and so I like to use a magnetic tip. I don't get it anywhere near my hard drive, but I use a magnetic tip so that I can hold these screws easily and get them in there easily. You can see how much easier that is than struggling and fumbling trying to use your fingers to do that. If you don't have a magnetic tip screwdriver, they're very inexpensive. I would suggest getting one. So as far as the power supply goes, you can see that it's raised a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch off the bottom of the case, and you can see that the case has some slats in here, which will allow for airflow, and they are protected by a dust filter on the bottom that I just dropped on the floor. That filter is going to keep your components clean and keep your power supply running cool for a long time. And it just snaps right in. It's very easy to remove. It doesn't slide in and out. It does have 2 little clips that snap in there. And the base for the power supply has these rubber strips which will keep vibration to a minimum and allow for stable mounting. When we take a look at the back side of the Lian Li PC-10N case, this is obviously the back of the motherboard, what would normally be the motherboard tray. Again, they use the rail system, and but these rails still provide, even without the use of cutouts and grommets and everything. And they do still provide a lot of areas for tie down. You can see they have little tabs here and here and here, and then along this edge here, so that realistically you can run your cables and tie them down to those rails and bring them around exactly where you need them, for example, and you can tie that down there and from the front, that will not be visible. Installing an optical drive or anything in the 5 1/4 inch bays on the front is designed to be pretty easy. I showed it briefly earlier. You just press the little lever and that opens right up, and you can see it has some pins which will in turn line up with the screw holes on the side of your disk drive or whatever else it is you're going to use. But you can see that these only come built into the top 2 slots. On the 3rd slot you will have to use, or the lower slot, you will have to use screws. I tried to look, and there's nothing to move that down to, so you can't move these to the next piece. Still not going to be incredibly difficult. Installing hard drives is as easy as just sliding them in. You'll fit 2.5 inch drives here, and then all your other standard size hard drives slide in here like I showed earlier using this little quick latch here. Now you do have 2 different size screws for that. You have one larger and one smaller, and those are both going to have a space to fit a little rubber washer, and then of course threads to attach it to the drive itself. And you also have 2 different size rubber washers, one large and one small, which of course the large goes on standard size hard drives and fits on thusly, and the same goes for the solid state drives, and it fits on just like that. Then it screws into position onto the drive itself, it screws down just like that. Again, like most of these screws, you don't want it too tight. You just screw it down till it stops, and you don't really twist it much more than that. You do that 4 times, and then you can see in the case, I'm going to tilt it your direction, you'll see better. You can see in the case it has these little grooves cut out, and that will snap right in and then lock into position. Of course, not hanging out the front like that. That was just to show you. So like I say, I have all of the screws mounted with the little rubber washers, and again you can see how easy that slides right into place and then snaps back and locks into position, and you'll be able to plug it in and use it from there. This rail system from the Lian Li PC-10 case is actually really nice for cable management. You can see here that for the most part you are able to route your cables in behind all of the rails, and then they tie down to the railing system itself, and in some cases don't even really need to be tied down. I'll probably throw some more zip ties around there and around right here, and then of course with a better power supply and some modular cables and things like that, this would be, hundreds of times better. But I've had to use the Molex that's provided, and so I have those extras. I could tie those off behind here, and I may, but they only provided 2 zip ties for this particular case, and so I'm trying to only use what they provided. But oftentimes better power supplies themselves will also come with plenty of zip ties, and of course any custom PC builder is going to be able and willing to buy a huge bundle of zip ties for $1 or $2. I don't even know how much they cost. They usually have so many. I have numerous extras, but you can see how well even from this setup, you can see how well this rail system handles cabling and how nicely that is. That's going to tuck right in there, and you won't have, from the other side, you'll hardly have any visible cables. Not that this is not a windowed case, so even then cable management itself is not a huge priority. But you'll pretty much only have a few cables here, and then these others are all tied to the back of this rail and that rail. My final thoughts for the Lian Li PC-10N Mid-Tower case really can only be expressed through dumbfounded silence. Every time I start to talk about this case, I end up gushing like a schoolgirl talking about some boy band or something. I have to admit, I am absolutely surprised by the sheer beauty and functionality of this case. When I first got it, received the box from the courier, and I looked at the box and I looked at the picture on the box and I thought, well, nothing special. I didn't think anything about it. Even though I had known, and I've always known, that Lian Li really produces some beautiful and unique cases. Like I say, when I got this one and looked at the picture, I didn't think anything of it. The box itself and the image on the front of the box does not do it justice at all. Lian Li take notes, put better pictures, and make a better box. That'll really help, I promise. Otherwise, the case is absolutely gorgeous. The second I took it out of the box and started working with it, I think you can even see in my video, my whole idea of it changed. The sheer beauty of the aluminum case itself really stands apart from many, many other cases. You know, most cases are made of steel and plastic and mesh and things like that. And that's all well and good, and those are very nice cases, but there's just something about the coloration of this case. The black is so smooth that it actually looks like the metal itself, the aluminum that it is crafted from, looks like it is black. Not just painted black, but the actual metal looks black. I'm sure it's not. I don't know. I'm sure it's just painted black like anything else, but it's such a wonderful job. And it doesn't scratch at all. The thumb screws have been a source of stress for me in every case I've dealt with. As soon as you tighten a thumb screw back down on the back, the paint flakes off. And with these, it doesn't do that. Of course, it has that little rubber washer, but even if it didn't, I feel like, and I'm not going to, but I feel like I could take a screwdriver to the side of this case and it won't scratch and flake off the paint. Other than that, some of the things that they've done with the motherboard tray, not really being a tray, being a rail system, is actually really beautiful. Just look at on the inside of the case. It's totally unique. I've never seen anything like it, and it works wonderfully. The motherboard is very secure. It's very open in the back, and I want to say it will actually keep temperatures down, just in that it's not, you know, right up against some other metal wall. It's all open. And, you know, of course there's the gap in the back for the cabling and then the side of the computer case itself, but that is exposed to outside air and not inside the case. So then the toolless attachments for the 5 1/4 inch drives on the front, for the optical drives and fan controllers and all that kind of stuff, those work really well. The only complaint at all is that the third slot, there's 3 positions for it. Only the top 2 have the toolless. The third does not. You have to use a screw. I like to use the lowest position, so as you saw in the video, I did screw mine in. The front panel comes off very easily. The fact that the filters on the fans just twist off, and they are tight, so they won't just rattle loose. I mean, you really do have to get in there and really twist on them some to get them to come loose, but you don't have to unscrew it. You don't have to take it apart. You don't have to unassemble the fan and the screws and everything. And then the fans themselves even just lift up and slide out of the slots that are pre-cut into the case. And it comes with the extra little rubber washers and fittings for that, so that if you replace fans or put different fans, if you wanted to add fans into the position, the hinged position on the left side for what really should be a 240 millimeter radiator, but you could easily put two 120 millimeter fans there also. Then you've got the cutout, remove the 4 screws on the top of the case. For exhaust, you can put a fan there. So a lot of airflow capabilities and a lot of possibility for a radiator to be on the side and water cooling and everything else in this case. Again, the case itself is just really beautiful, and I really like, I'm really excited about the way the hard drives go in. The fact that I don't have to screw the hard drive down to a plate and then install the plate into the hard drive bay. I just put a couple screws in the bottom of the hard drive and I can slide it in. For me, especially as a person who builds basically a new computer every week, that means a lot. That makes it really easy. The simplicity of it is just so great. I don't know why everyone hasn't been doing that for 20 years. It seems like the first step that should have been taken instead of what I see seems like the last step. So with all those things combined, coming together to make this really one of the best mid-tower cases I have ever seen, I'm definitely giving the Lian Li PC-10N case a Editor's Choice Award. The construction and the durability and the sheer beauty of it, there's no way I could take anything from it. I'm very happy with this case and very happy that I got to review it for you guys. You should come join us over on our forums at www.hightechlegion.com. Check out all of our reviews and any other tutorials that we're able to do for you, from games to software to all the latest hardware and technology. Of course, you can like us on Facebook and follow us there. That's nice. And then follow us on Twitter also for daily updates there. Once again, I'm Steve Cox with High Tech Legion, signing out.